Hello, and welcome to this new idea for a kind of sub-series that I wanted to try out, and as you would expect, it's called In the Perspective of a Teenager. And as stupid and as bland as that name sounds, it is supposed to present the idea and the concept of what this is at face value. Now, as you saw, the title of this video is Credibility in the Perspective of a Teenager. And the reason I thought it would be a good idea to start this whole sub-series out like this is it reaches towards the meta of the idea of this series, which is the credibility of teenagers, children, just the general scope of young people. When it comes to modern society, there's usually a black and white stance when it comes to credibility. It's generally you'll have your young adolescent people that aren't fully mature, they're not fully experienced, and then you'll have your older people, they have their frontal lobe developed so they're able to judge situations better, and, of course, they are obviously more experienced. They have attained more knowledge than a young person. Wisdom does come into question, but there it still stands. Age definitely plays a part, and it is definitely inherent in the intelligence and wisdom of someone. It isn't the only factor that goes into it. Generally speaking, when a younger person wants to make their opinion heard, or they want to voice what they think on the matter, usually you'll find that they are at least largely discredited simply for the fact that they're younger. And that's mostly because boomers and the older side of the millennial generation suspect that their credibility is immediately taken into account simply for the fact that they're younger. And that is a perfectly rational way to think about it. However, that's a one-step thought process. It's not solving anything. It's just assuming that because they're younger, less mature, not fully developed, I shouldn't listen to this person, I shouldn't worry about what they have to say. And yes, that does make day-to-day life easier, especially if you're browsing the internet, and you're specifically going through opinion-based information. And that's where this series comes into play. Now, as stupid as these videos may or will be, let's go with will, as stupid as they will be, I think it's important. Now that does sound even more stupid. I am very much aware of that. But in our society, it seems that younger people's opinions, ideas, thoughts are vastly suppressed. So I'll be using my YouTube platform, however small it is, I will be using it as a way to voice my opinions, call ethics into questions, and bring up philosophy in a neutral standpoint. And the main reason as to why it's called In the Perspective of a Teen is just that. It is my biased opinion on certain topics, but the way I will perceive these topics are very much different to most people considering I'm still developing, I'm young. My main goal is to combat instant discredibility based on my age. If you guys are wondering, I am 15 years old right now. I have roughly 10 years of development before I would be considered fully mature, from a biological standpoint. By me making these videos, I'm assuming that I'll be able to share these ideas in at least some format in which someone will be able to listen and add that perspective as a different way of thinking about something, or even an idea that they're willing to follow themselves. And when it comes to credibility, and especially when we're thinking about the last decade or so, credibility seems to have changed completely. Whenever we think of someone as a first impression, and first impressions are important, but when we think of their first impression, it is interesting to think about. Back then, you can look at someone and make a pretty good judgment about them. And it seems like, at least from my experience and as far as I know about judging people, it seems that can't really be done anymore. And especially with the whole LGBTQ movement and trans identity and all this stuff, I'm not going to get into that, but essentially, someone could identify as a different gender, but they could look like the opposite gender. So you can't exactly take someone's looks and identify a lot of things about them. The whole idea of women having long hair and men having short hair, it seems to be fading out, like it's no longer a thing. And I also think, too, back then, how, generally speaking, if you were in a certain community or you thought a certain way, you would look a certain way. And that is the case, especially now. but it seems like it's getting harder and harder to differentiate certain features based on how someone looks or how they make themselves appear. Now, I'm not trying to attack anyone or any specific group right now, and even though I mentioned LGBTQ, I am definitely not attempting to attack them, but it seems like with changing times, you can't get enough information based off of a first impression to really judge someone properly. That's why I'm making this video, to sort of point out the meta when it comes to making videos like this, and I do want to make it clear that even though these videos are based in my opinion and my biases, I am attempting to base them on as much facts as I can, so I'm not just pulling random shit out of my ass and hoping that it ends up making a difference. I genuinely want to spread my ideas as a younger, undeveloped person, because when you become 25 and older and you have a developed mindset, especially, and I mean especially in our modern society, it seems as though adults become narrow-minded because they're dealing with so much stress. They don't have the mental capability of being able to have such complex thoughts. Now, that might sound like I'm just calling every adult stupid. And to a degree, that is what I said. But if you think about it, there is a huge disparity with how much activity is going on. We are living in the most intensely stimulating period in the history of the Earth. Just let that sink in. Along with, we're living in the era of knowledge. You can obtain information on almost anything at any time, within reason. And this disparity is what creates such an intense diversity between appearance, physically and mentally, as far as opinions go, and as far as behavior goes. So whether you want to see this as insightful philosophical information, or just a dumbass 15-year-old calmly ranting into a mic, whatever way you want to see it, I'm doing this to get this out there, and I'm also doing this as a form of de-stressing, because a lot of the ethical issues I see and a lot of the philosophical things I like to think about aren't necessarily what everyone wants to hear around me. So this video and the rest of this sub-series is designed for the people who really want to listen to the perspective of a teenager. I can't do this forever, so I'm just gonna get these thoughts out while I can, and once I get older, I can look back on them and think, wow, I was stupid, or wow, I can't believe I thought that. Because when it comes to maturity, I am currently actively changing like a motherfucker. So I think it'd be interesting to get these ideas out, to have my current state of mind put in place, especially based on current conditions when it comes to health, society, ethics, and philosophy. This whole video was unscripted. This was all off of the top of my head. This was just my opinion in a calm fashion. If you want to see more of this stuff, leave down in the comments some of your opinions on the topic of credibility. So yeah, I plan on talking about some fairly controversial things, but I'm not going to be attempting to create a controversy out of them. I'm simply going to give my perspective on what I think about the controversial topic. I will not be attempting to add anything. I will not be attempting to take away anything. I just simply want to give what I think as an immature, undeveloped teenager out there. An adult's perspective isn't the only perspective. So I will see you in the next video. Bye.